So the first thing that's kind of interesting about this illustration, and I don't know if the author Jack Kent or the illustrator knew this, but if you look at traditional representations of this figure called an Ouroboros, which is like a world encircling serpent, it's very, very frequent that the entity has a twist in its tail, and from what I've been able to understand, that twist represents infinity. So the dragon in part is something that represents what's continually beyond our realm of knowledge. And so it's a very complicated idea, and it echoes everywhere. So one thing you can think of is that there's always something that's beyond your realm of knowledge, your realm of competence and ability. And another thing that you can think of is that people have known this for a long time, and it's a strange form of knowledge because it's knowledge about the limits of knowledge. So it's like meta-knowledge. And you can generalize from that meta-knowledge to some degree, because you can say, well, as you go through your life, you're going to have a lot of problems. And then you could also say, as you go through your life, a lot of unexpected things will happen to you, and many of them will be problems. And then you can say, well, what that means is that you can conceptualize a class of unexpected things, right? The class of unexpected things is all the potential unexpected things that might happen to you. And then you could say, well, how do I deal with an unexpected thing? And the answer to that is you learn how as you deal with it. But you could also ask yourself, well, how do I deal with the class of all unexpected things? And that's a whole different question. And I would say in some sense that's a primary religious question. It deals with the fundamental realities of life. There are things outside your domain of competence, outside of the domain of competence of your culture, and you will have to deal with them. So how do you deal with them? One by one, or can you deal with them as a class? And so one of the things that I would like to offer you as a hypothesis is that figures like the dragon are symbolic representations of the class of all things that lie outside of your competence. Now you see the figure of the serpent or the dragon in relationship to a dwelling in very many stories. So one story, for example, that this motif comes up in is the story in Genesis, the story of Adam and Eve, because there's a serpent in the garden, and that's exactly the same idea as the dragon in the house, and that's the same idea as the fact that no matter how hard you try to make the environment that you're in stable and secure, the things that you don't understand and don't know how to deal with are going to poke their head inside and emerge. There's no way of keeping, so to speak, there's no way of keeping the snakes out of the garden. So it's the wrong approach. You know, maybe you could build a fence that's 200 feet high and that's drilled 100 feet into the ground, that's made out of solid concrete, and put a cap on it and sit in the middle of that and not let anything in. I mean, first of all, that seems like a bad strategy, but even that, it doesn't matter, because the things that you don't understand can emerge inside of you as well. And that happens, for example, every time you get sick, or every time your body does something that you don't expect or want it to. There's no escape from this situation. And that's partly what this story is about. So this little boy, you know, he's maturing, he's growing up, he's becoming self-conscious. And he's at an age, because he's about 3 or 4, he's at an age where self-consciousness actually seems to emerge in children, where they become aware of themselves as really separate creatures, and often start to concern themselves with covering up, putting clothes on, not being naked around other people. You know, and some children care about that and some don't, but that is the age approximately that it develops. You know, so this boy, he's in his house, he's in his window, and he's become aware of something that's at least perplexing. Now, you know, you might say, well, given the size of the dragon, that it's also terrifying, but we'll start with perplexing. So, because what's perplexing can turn into what's terrifying if you ignore it. So, and that's partly what this book is trying to present. It's funny, because it's a cute little book, you know, it's just a cute little book. So